I'm Jacqueline, and the channel is called The Myer the Merrier. We are a family of 5 who moved from the U.S. to Koh Samui, Thailand in August of 2023 to have an adventure with our children and to see what living abroad would be like. We wanted to find the best way to move to Thailand using visas. There are lots of different visas that you can get here in Thailand. And we started looking at a retirement visa. You only have to be over the age of 50 in order to get a retirement visa to Thailand. So that seemed like a good option for us, as my husband and I are both over 50. So we thought we'd look at that. But then there was this really long list of things that you needed to do in order to get the visa. So we thought maybe we should ask some questions. So I called the Thai consulate in Chicago, asked some questions of them. That is an option. They don't necessarily always return calls, but if you get a hold of someone, you can get some good answers. So take a look at the Thai consulate that is in your area. And we asked what would be a better option for us as far as visas were concerned. And he suggested that we take a look at education visas for our children, and we get a non-O family reunion visa for my husband and me to piggyback off of their visas. And that sounded like a fine idea to us. It seemed like it was the best idea that he thought. So we started looking at schools in Koh Samui, in Bangkok, in a lot of different places throughout Thailand. Phuket was one of the areas that we also looked at. Koh Samui is a little bit more of an expensive place to live, but the schools here can be a lot less expensive than they are in some areas in Thailand. And so we were surprised that the schools were as affordable here as they are. With 3 kids, the cost of tuition is one of our biggest expenses. So trying to keep that number kind of more reasonable, even though the living expenses here might be a little higher, since the tuition here in some cases is a decent amount lower, we thought that might work for us. So I just went on, just did some Google searches for schools in Thailand, and I found a site that I think can be helpful no matter where you want to live around the world. It is called International Schools Database, and I'll put it in the comments below, but it's basically international-schools-database.com. You simply put in the age of a student. I put in 11, just as an example, and you put in where you'd like to live, and this could be Koh Samui, Thailand. It could be a school in Romania, Albania, Mauritius, you name it. You can look up schools all over the world on the same database. And if you put in their age, if you have several children, you can put in several ages, and it'll put the information together for you. But in this case, I just put the 11-year-old student, and I got information on the 2023-24, so this school year, the costs and fees for students in that age. Now, some of these schools, not all of them, will have discounts for a second and third child that you might have in the school, and that's going to be specific to each of the schools. So you can take a look at that. Now, when I went onto this database and I put in Koh Samui, Thailand, and the age of 11, what I found was 4 schools. And I know that that's wrong because I know that there are 5 schools. So it's not going to have everything. You can find a good place to start here. And if you want to dig a little deeper, you may want to just do some more Google searches and see if you can find, schools in whatever city that you're looking to live. So just to kind of run down the really general, parts of each of these schools to give a really quick comparison, I thought maybe I'd give you some general ideas. So there's a school called Green Acre School, and it is in what's basically kind of the southwest. There's not really anything in the southwest quarter of Samui. I think it's mostly marshlands, but it's sort of on that southwest side of the island, and it will teach students between the ages of 3 and 16 years old. So in vernacular of the United States, you won't be able to have your kids go through high school there, but they will go for obviously up to age 16. It is the national curriculum of England, and the costs of this school are, and I'm going to give you Thai baht in US dollars. So 236,000 Thai baht is the schooling cost sort of every year. So that's roughly 6,400 US. Now the first year in many of these schools, and probably schools throughout the world, there are some additional kind of registration fees and first year fees. And those are going to be a higher number, obviously. And in some cases, they're a much higher number. So in the case of Green Acre School, it's 252,000 Thai baht, which is about 68.50, let's say, US dollars. So about 400, let's call it $450 more that first year than it will be in subsequent years. The next school that was on their list was a school called UNRAC School, and this is going to be more, I don't know anybody that attends the school, but based on what it shows on the site, it looks like more of a bilingual British Thai school. So if your children already speak some Thai, maybe this is a school that's used more for students that have a Thai parent and an English-speaking parent, or a Thai parent and another parent who, they might like their children to speak more English. It is a fully immersive British and Thai bilingual school. So not probably the best bet for our children because they didn't speak any Thai walking in the door. It is in the Mae Nam area, so basically kind of the northern part of the island. And the price of this one is the most reasonably priced school in Samui. But again, if your children don't speak any Thai, it might be a little bit more challenging. This is 130,000 Thai baht for that yearly cost, which is about $3,500 US. The first year, you're looking at about 145,000 Thai baht, which is roughly 3,900. So again, very reasonably priced kind of private school here on Samui. The next school is, and I'm sorry, getting back to the UNRAC thing, that school is really just for younger kids. It goes from ages 2 to 12 years. So once they're getting into that, what we would in the US call middle school or junior high, they're really going to have to move to a different school. At least at this point. Perhaps they're looking at expanding, I don't know. But then the next school that's on the list is a school called PBISS. And PBISS is in Chaweng Noi, and they have billboards all over Samui saying that it's more of a technology-based learning. You don't really know how that really stands up once in the classroom. We know some students who go there. It's not like they're on the computer all day or handing in work on computers or anything like that, as far as we can tell for their age bracket. But obviously you can ask some questions. It does seem to be a little bit of a bigger school. That school, again, British curriculum, and it's getting back into a little bit more of expensive side, where you're at about 296,000 Thai baht, which is 8,000 US for like the regular yearly costs. But that first year cost, those additional fees, you're looking at 336,000 Thai baht, which is right around 9,000 US for the first year. And again, that price obviously, kind of went down if you were in your second year here. Now, these are just for the 2023-24 school year, so these fees can obviously go up and probably will. The big dog here on Samui is the International School of Samui. It is for children ages 3 to 18. It is the most expensive school here. Parents that send their children there speak very highly of the education that they're getting. I know when I took a look on their website specifically, they talk about doing a lot of testing. It is a British school. It is in Boput, which is the northeast kind of corner of the island. It's north of Chaweng. And the costs of this school are just under 500,000 for kind of a regular school year, which is about 13,500 US dollars. But for that first year, the fees are pretty high. And again, I'm not sure how it's broken down, but if you're interested in the school, you probably want to dig into it on their individual website. All of these schools have links to their individual websites from the International School Database site. Anyway, the first year for 11-year-olds, and this is a school that serves 3 to 18-year-old students, is $17,600. So, obviously, if you're looking at coming for many years, you're amortizing that really big upfront charge, about $4,000 over many years. It's a little bit easier to swallow, having that extra big first year fee. And then the one school that was not on the International Schools database, but I know does exist here in Samui, is a school called Winfield School. Now, when you look at those International School database, it asks for the age of the children, where you want to live, and then the last question is, what language would you like the school to teach in? And on this particular database, it said, when I put in Koh Samui, it said only Thai and English language schools were available. So I know that that's not true because there is a school called Winfield School that has a French section and it has a British section. The French program, and I don't know too much about what this means, but its certification is AEFE. I think, to my understanding, based on some conversations that I've had with some French-speaking parents, is that it has been kind of encouraged and maybe subsidized by the French government so that students can have a French education here in Thailand. At one time, I believe the fees for the French side of the school were perhaps significantly less. It sounds like going into the 2024-25 school year, if they are less, it wouldn't be very much less. But the other side, the British side, which is only maybe 2 or 3 years old, is also, is a little bit newer, and it's a British Cambridge school. This school is in the Lamai area of Koh Samui. That's the southern area. There's a lot more French-speaking folks, I think, that live down there. It sort of makes sense for the French-speaking school to be there. Now, again, French side and British side. And the cost for that school, now this is for the British side, were about $217,000 for an 11-year-old, which is about $5,900 US. Those initial costs for the first year are also kind of significantly higher, about $900 higher, which is 235,000 Thai baht, or about 6,800 US dollars for students there. So, you can take a look at all of the schools and see which one is right for you. Those may fit your, your budget or your goals for your children. We have 3 children, so budgetary needs are different maybe than if you have one child. We don't work in Samui. There are people that have work permits and work in Samui, and maybe they are able to afford more expensive schools. Or perhaps if you have a Thai parent and a British or English-speaking parent, then you might be taking a look at that UNRAC school. Might be a better fit for your child, but again, only through a certain age. So if we took a look, we looked at Bangkok, we looked at Phuket, and we decided that Samui made the most sense for us and our family. And so we decided that we would pick a school here. So my advice to you, if you decide that you want to go this route of having your children get an education visa and you being able to piggyback off that visa, is to get this started a little bit earlier, because it does take longer than I thought it was going to take. Now, what ends up happening is you pick this school and you end up paying the tuition and fees for the children for the school year. Do this in advance because you want to have your visa settled before you ever get off that plane in Koh Samui in Thailand. You want to have the visa before you step foot on Thai soil. They will tell you after you pay the money for the tuition that it'll take about 2 weeks to get the paperwork you need to get your visa, to apply for your visa. So if it takes a couple more days, ours took a little more than 2 weeks. I think there were maybe some holidays in there. You need to build in that extra time in order to make sure that you do get the visa on time. So don't leave it tight, because we ended up having a visa fiasco that didn't need to happen. So go into the school, pay the tuition, get that squared away. They will then ask you for paperwork, things like a copy of the passport and birth certificates, things that show that you're really the parents, etc., so that they can do paperwork, and they will send that paperwork to the Ministry of Education. Again, it will take at least 2 weeks. Ours took longer. Once that paperwork is back, then you take that paperwork and you apply for your visa through the consulate in your part, in this case of the United States. I'm guessing it's probably the same in other countries too. So we got the paperwork from our school, who got the paperwork from the Ministry of Education showing that our children were enrolled there and that the school does really exist. It's a pretty big PDF. And then we applied through the e-visa site for Thailand, at our consulate, which in our case was the Chicago consulate for Thailand. And then that'll take a couple of weeks. Now, if they're doing some off-site work because they have a mobile consulate going on, they're not going to be working on what you need them to work on for you. So in our case, it's supposed to be about 2 weeks, and it was a little bit longer. So make sure that you get that together. Now, the visa that our children our children are on is called a non-immigration education visa. We, as their parents, and you can only have one parent per child, so if you have two parents and you have one child, one of you can be kind of piggybacking off that child, but the other person is going to have to find some other way to get a visa into the country. And so we have a non-immigration O visa, and on some of the paperwork it says family reunion, but basically we're piggybacking off the children's education visa. Taking a look at the dates of that visa, basically what ends up happening is you get that visa, you have 90 days to open a bank account and get the rest of the documentation to extend your visa for 1 year. So that first visa is really going to be that 90 days plus 1 year, and that's how long you can stay on that visa. And then each year you need to have subsequent visas, and you can stay on this education visa. It does say that we cannot work, neither the children nor Steve and I can work on this visa. If we did find a job at some point while we were here, we would end up going on a work permit. And I don't know how that transitions. My guess is that it wouldn't be a difficult transition to make, but the employer is the one who's going to get your work permit. So that really is going to be more on them. But you have this year, and then the school will help you in subsequent years get an additional 1 year at a time. Now, we do have friends who are leaving the island. Their school has said that they need to give a 1-term notice to leave. So that doesn't happen at all of the schools, but it does happen at some of the schools where you do have to give a notice to leave. Otherwise, you might be stuck paying tuition for another term. But they will ask you, listen, if your last day is then, let us know when you are leaving the island. And I'm guessing that if it's not a date that's close enough, it's not going to be acceptable. But they will cancel your visa with the Ministry of Education if your child is no longer enrolled in that school that initially got the visa for you. So kind of keep that in mind. If you want to stay and switch schools, then you're going to have those upfront costs again of a new registration. You are going to have to get a new visa from the new school if you want to change schools. You think, generally speaking, I have seen on some of the expat sites that there are people that have moved their children from one school to the other because they didn't feel like they liked the performance of the school their children happened to be in. A lot of these schools, they're looking at as the international schools. You might have 40 different nationalities, 40 different cultures in the school, which is a great learning experience for the children. As Americans, I don't know that I think we know one other American student we go to pick up when we try to see if we can track somebody down just by listening for accents. But not a lot of Americans here on Koh Samui as far as the education is concerned. So just keep that in mind. I think if you have any questions, certainly put them in the comments. I'd be happy to answer them. Do take a look at Koh Samui Expats, that site, and you can ask questions there. Sometimes people will ask folks to give a comparison of one school to the other. I think that's a little bit tough because most parents will kind of commit to a school and stick with it. But I have seen a couple of parents who've said, yes, my children have been at these schools, and these are the pros and cons of the schools. So keep that in mind. If you are interested in more information about moving your family abroad or specifically to Koh Samui, Thailand, please like and subscribe regardless, but definitely hit the notification bell so that we can you can make sure to see the videos as they come out. Again, Jacqueline, for the Mire the Merrier. Thanks.